Well, it appears the Nord Stream pipeline is once again a topic of conversation. And why might that be? Well, something that's so fascinating about this that appears German authorities are now going after a Ukrainian man that they say is responsible for placing these charges upon the pipeline itself. What's so remarkable about this specifically, but also so obvious? It's that it's the German government doing this, and why would it be Germany that's so focused on this? Well, for those of you that are unaware, Germany uses natural gas for a large portion of its energy. And with the Nord Stream pipeline being something that delivered cheap natural gas to Germany, it is something that no longer can provide it. Thus, their cost of energy skyrocketed to the tune of, at a minimum, 1,200 to 1,300%. But does that matter to the greater Western world? No. We have to sit there and castigate Vladimir Putin as a villain, claiming that it was him who blew up his own pipeline. Absolutely insane that they would say Russia is the one who wields responsibility for this. Can you actually imagine that? The fact that you could sit there and claim that it was Russia, effectively the person who is making profit off of this, is going to be the one that kneecaps their own capacity to rake in money that they would most certainly need in wartime. The lies are so obvious it's unbelievable. But what's even more wild to me is that the people within the corporate press that report on things like this, the ones that claim to care so much about climate change, global warming, raising global temperatures, and the ethereal threat of the sun monster, they have done almost no reporting on the fact of how the Nord Stream pipeline is one of the greatest, if not the greatest, ecological disasters ever created by man. No, we'll just sidestep that and sell you a new narrative about a new talking point because God forbid we pay attention to the fact how Western intel agencies could have been responsible for blowing up the Nord Stream pipeline. Now let's jump in and see what we've got. Starting off here with the Atlantic, we see the most consequential act of sabotage in modern times. The destruction of the Nord Stream pipeline curtailed Europe's reliance on Russian gas. But who is responsible? And I think we very well know who is responsible at this point in 2024. But anyways, moving on to MSNBC, here we see traces of explosives found at Nord Stream pipeline confirm gross sabotage, Sweden says. European officials had previously blamed Russia for the blast, accusing the Kremlin of starting an energy war to damage international support for Ukraine. Okay, let's go ahead and address the insanity of saying that Russia blew up their own pipeline. Let's say that you live in a dry county and you own the only bar in town. And because of that, you're able to provide alcohol. Thus, you're the only person, in fact, that can provide it to this entire county. And because you have property rights, you're still allowed to sell this product. But here's the thing. How you get this product, how it's produced, well, it's done so out of town because of the regulations of where you live. So specifically, this instance means that you have to have a main line that delivers you your alcohol, right? Okay, so with this, we understand that if the people of the town were to react against you, they didn't like the fact of you raising your prices, or they simply didn't support your business, how is it that you would react? If you were intentionally trying to spite your opposition, would you A, take an axe to your main line and destroy your capacity to even make any money whatsoever, and also on top of that, creating a disaster with which you will also have to fix? Or is it that you simply shut it off at the tap? I want you to consider that. Which is it? Because they actually want you to believe that Russia effectively took an axe to their main line, which is nothing more than something that spews profits into the Russian economy. It's absolutely insane, but not as insane as all of the nonsense they try and sell you surrounding things such as this. Moving on now, here we see from Seymour Hersh, one of the greatest journalists to ever live, how America took out the Nord Stream pipeline. So yes, it does appear we know exactly who did this. The New York Times called it a mystery, but the United States executed a covert sea operation that was kept secret until now. And if you're unfamiliar with this man or his work or what was going on surrounding this topic specifically, if you would like more minutia behind it beyond what this video is going to give you, I highly recommend this interview here. Link in the description down below. You can go find it. This is from Democracy Now! Reporter Seymour Hersh on how America took out the Nord Stream pipeline, an exclusive TV interview. And this is something that is truly remarkable because it's being talked about so openly by Democracy Now, which, while I am not a fan in many ways, and there are some things that they talk about that I think is nonsense and they're kind of unintentionally pushing propaganda, the thing is, when I see Democracy Now talk about these things, I do believe that some of the people that work there are unintentionally pushing these narratives rather than intentionally delivering them to you as nothing more than propagandists with intent. That is a big thing to pay attention to. But you know what's an even bigger thing to pay attention to? That this destruction of the Nord Stream pipeline, well, it was talked about, in fact, before it even happened. And if you're unfamiliar with this, well, my friends, Joe Biden had effectively revealed the entirety of the game plan months before this had actually happened. And oh my goodness, when this unfurled, I remember thinking, I was like, man, this is really ballsy to say on live television.
If Russia invades, that means tanks or troops crossing the border of Ukraine again. Then there will be no longer a Nord Stream 2. We will bring an end to it.
How will you do that exactly, since the project and control of the project is within Germany's control?
We will, I promise you, we'll be able to do it.
Will you commit today to turning off and pulling the plug on Nord Stream 2? You didn't mention it. You haven't mentioned it.
You can hear that lady's surprise. She's like, how will you do that? And well, in fact, we already know, because as we've already gone through, traces of explosions were found at the Nord Stream pipeline, confirming sabotage, which I would say paints the entirety of the picture for you to understand what it is that the Biden administration and the United States government planned on doing. Jumping in now to the Associated Press, we see a global mystery. What's known about the Nord Stream explosions? And it's not a global mystery, I can guarantee you that. It's quite obvious what unfolded. It's just a matter of people that work for the Associated Press are never actually going to want to tackle this. Jumping on now to Denmark, here we see they've apparently closed the probe into the Nord Stream pipeline blast, saying there's not enough grounds for a criminal case. Interesting that. But you know who does have enough grounds for a criminal case? The ones who were actually affected far harder than Denmark, in fact. Well, it's the Germans. Here we see Germany issues arrest warrant for a Ukrainian man over Nord Stream explosion. The sabotage of the pipeline that carried Russian gas to Europe has become one of the central mysteries of the war in Ukraine. It's not a mystery. It's so obvious what happened, and all you have to do is read the reporting that's not from the corporate press to actually understand this. Here we jump into Financial Times. The U.S. was aware of Ukrainian plot to attack Nord Stream, says report. Interesting. So, yes, this Ukrainian plot to attack Nord Stream, I'm sure it was also done in conjunction with Western intel agencies. Moving on now, here we see the Nord Stream pipeline and the perils of containment. The sabotage in the Baltic Sea was the result of a long-standing U.S. policy of driving a wedge between Russia and Western Europe, which is absolutely true, and if anyone in the corporate press tells you otherwise, know that they are quite literally lying through their teeth, or they should not be trusted because they simply have no idea what they're talking about. Either way, an untrustworthy individual to say the least. Moving on now, here we see Nord Stream leaks release methane into the environment. Methane, a potent greenhouse gas, is spewing into the atmosphere after Nord Stream pipeline explosions. Here's what we know so far on what that means for the climate. And as I've already stated, the people that care so much about the climate, their fear of the ethereal floating abstraction that is the sun monster, the all-knowing glowing ball of fire in the sky. It's absolutely wild that people freak out about this to the degree that they do, but nonetheless, they've been propagandized in an unbelievable way. But anyways, the thing is, even with all that consistent propaganda and fear-mongering that's launched into their mind, what we see is they still will not actually tackle the nature of something like this because it goes against the narrative of one other piece of propaganda that they've been sold on. And because of that, you need to realize many of the times when you see people talking about things like whether it be the war in Ukraine, the environment, or a litany of other different topics that the establishment loves to drip feed in front of you so they can keep you distracted, you must realize that many of the times, even when you are getting information that is truthful, the stories you're getting are built on half-truths, which is exactly what we see when talking about the Nord Stream pipeline, because in the end, in the era of 2024 that we live in currently, the media still won't actually address the fact that there is large pieces of investigative information that have been brought forward that are relevant to prove the fact that both Ukraine and the West wield responsibility in this. But they'll never talk about it because it goes against the narrative that they are so dutifully trying to sell you. Finishing this off, here we see Nord Stream gas explosions may have caused greater ecological damage than expected. And I can guarantee you it certainly caused a greater environmental toll than what was expected, but what I can also guarantee is that the environmental toll of what will come down the line from the possible wars that will break out in the future because of actions such as this by Western powers, well, it will only lead to more things like environmental cataclysms and possibly, I don't know, the irradiation of the planet, as we could see nuclear hellfire rain across the globe if we are to consistently taunt what is the greatest nuclear superpower the world has ever seen. Absolutely insane that this is the moment that we're living in, but nonetheless, when you walk through history, everything always seems a bit ridiculous. I'm going to go ahead and call it there. Thank you for watching. If you got this far, thumbs up if you liked it, thumbs down if you didn't. Tell me where I'm wrong in the comment section down below. Stay lovely, stay great, and most importantly, as always, tell someone you love them. Peace out.